The night sky above the alien world of Velara glowed with strange purple lights. Shimmering moons drifted across the horizon, casting silver shadows over the high towers of the royal palace. Inside the palace, silence ruled, broken only by the soft echo of footsteps in endless marble halls. The alien Countess walked slowly through the grand corridor, her long gown flowing like liquid light. Her beauty was legendary across the galaxy, and her face seemed untouched by time. But behind her glowing eyes, behind the jewels and riches, there was a fear she never spoke aloud. The Countess paused before a mirror taller than any human. Her reflection shone back at her, graceful and flawless, yet when she leaned closer, the truth revealed itself. Tiny lines around her eyes, faint shadows beneath her skin, signs of age that her kind feared more than death. She touched the mirror, her hand trembling slightly. For centuries, she had ruled with charm and power, hiding her greatest secret. Her beauty was fading, her youth slipping away, and without it, her influence, her throne, her life itself would crumble. In the shadows of the palace, old advisors whispered of ancient knowledge. They spoke of a prophecy hidden in the archives of the First Ones, a secret that promised eternal youth, but at a terrible cost. The Countess had heard it all before, but now, with her fading strength, she could not ignore it any longer. In her private chambers, far from the eyes of her court, the Countess unlocked a sealed chest. Inside lay scrolls of alien silk, glowing with forgotten energy. She spread them across her desk, the symbols shifting like living fire. Her eyes read the words again and again. Eternal youth shall be, restored only by the vital essence of a human. The Countess whispered the line under her breath, her voice soft but filled with hunger. A human, she thought, the rarest of all beings. Humans were fragile compared to her kind, yet their life force burned brighter than any other. It was said that their spirit, their essence, carried something eternal, something no alien could create. Her hands clenched the scroll as fear mixed with desire. If the prophecy was true, if she could capture a human, she could be young forever. But there was a shadow of guilt inside her heart. To take such essence would mean stealing life itself. It would mean murder, not survival. The Countess rose and walked to the balcony. Below, the city stretched endlessly, glowing with neon light and alien machines. Her people adored her, but they did not know the price she had paid to appear immortal. She had already consumed strange elixirs, stolen fragments of energy from other beings, but nothing lasted. Nothing could stop the march of time. A soft voice entered the chamber, breaking her thoughts. "My Countess," said an old servant, bowing low, "the advisors ask if you will attend the feast tonight." She turned slowly, her face calm though her heart beat fast. "No," she said firmly. "Tell them I have more important matters." The servant bowed again and vanished, leaving her alone with her secret. The Countess closed her eyes, remembering her youth, the laughter she once had, the strength in her voice, the fire in her veins. Now, she felt only the weight of years, pressing down like chains. She could not let her people see her weakness. She could not let the galaxy know their perfect Countess was just another being afraid of time. In the silence, she whispered again, "A human, somewhere across the stars." One existed. If fate was kind, one would soon fall into her reach, and when that moment came, she would decide. Would she take his essence and live forever, or fall into the arms of time like the rest of her kind? But deep inside, she already knew the answer. Her hunger was too strong, her fear too deep. She would not let go of her youth, not when eternity was within her grasp. The night grew colder, and the palace lights dimmed. The Countess stood tall at her balcony, her gown swaying like mist. In the distance, thunder rolled across alien skies. To her, it sounded like destiny approaching, and somewhere far beyond the stars, a human traveler prepared unknowingly to cross her path. The Countess placed a hand over her heart, feeling it beat like a warning. Her lips curved into a smile, beautiful and terrifying at once. The game of eternity was about to begin, and she would play it until the last star burned out. Asterisk, far beyond the glowing skies of Velara, a lonely starship drifted through space. Its engines hummed with a steady rhythm, carrying a single traveler across the dark inside. The human pilot leaned back in his chair, watching the stars slip by like silver rivers. His name was Daniel Hall, a wanderer, an explorer with no home but the stars. Daniel was not a soldier, not a hero, just a man searching for answers in the galaxy. His ship carried old maps, broken tools, and fragments of Earth's history. He often replayed recordings of Earth's oceans, mountains, and forests. For though he had left his home long ago, its memory lived in his heart. One night, as he charted a new course, alarms screamed across the cabin, red lights flashed, warning of a sudden storm of energy tearing through space. Daniel fought to control the ship, his hands flying across the controls. The vessel shook violently, lightning-like arcs striking against its metal hull. "Come on, hold together," he muttered, his jaw tight with determination. But the storm grew stronger, pulling him off course, dragging him toward the unknown. The ship spiraled, flames bursting from its wings, until at last it pierced the atmosphere of a hidden world. The controls failed, the engines died, and the human ship crashed against the alien soil. Smoke rose into the night as the wreckage burned. Daniel stumbled out, coughing, his suit torn, his face streaked with sweat and ash. Around him stretched a strange landscape, towers of stone, glowing faint blue under 3 moons. The air smelled of flowers and iron. Heavy with mystery, before he could gather his thoughts, shadows moved in the darkness. Figures emerged tall, armored guards with gleaming eyes and weapons shaped like living metal. They surrounded him in silence, their steps echoing like drums. Daniel raised his hands, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "I mean no harm," he said. "I am a traveler, my ship crashed." The guards did not answer, only exchanged silent glances. Then, as if obeying an unseen command, they seized him. Cold hands gripped his arms, pulling him toward a waiting carriage of silver. Daniel resisted for a moment, but he was outnumbered and exhaustion weighed him down. With no choice, he let them lead him deeper into the alien city. The streets were unlike anything he had seen before. Bridges arched into the sky, glowing with rivers of light. Creatures with wings of glass flew overhead, singing haunting songs, and everywhere, alien citizens turned to stare at the human stranger. Their eyes filled with both wonder and fear. At last the guards brought him to the palace. Its towers spiraled like blades piercing the heavens, its walls carved with ancient runes. Daniel felt a chill as the gates opened, revealing endless halls of marble and crystal. Torches of blue fire lit the path as they dragged him forward. At the end of the hall, she stood the alien Countess. Her gown shimmered like the night sky. Her jewels blazed like suns, her eyes deep and piercing. Locked on him the moment he entered, Daniel froze, sensing something powerful, something dangerous behind that gaze. The guards bowed low, forcing him to kneel. "My Countess," one of them said, "we found this human near the wreck of his vessel." The Countess raised her hand, silencing them. Her lips curved into a smile, warm yet sharp like a blade. "Leave us," she commanded softly, and the guards obeyed, vanishing into the shadows. Daniel stood slowly, his breath unsteady. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. The Countess stepped closer, her presence filling the air like a storm. "I am the ruler of Velara," she said, her tone velvet yet heavy. "And you, human, are my guest." Her words carried comfort, but her eyes told another story. They searched him, measured him, almost drank in his very presence. Daniel felt uneasy, though he could not explain why. There was beauty in her, yes, but also hunger. A hunger that chilled his blood. The Countess circled him like a predator studying. "Prey, so fragile," she whispered, "and yet so bright." Daniel narrowed his eyes, stepping back. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The Countess paused, her smile widening ever so slightly. "All in time," she said. For now you shall rest, and soon you shall understand." Before he could reply, two silent servants appeared, guiding him toward a chamber. The doors closed behind him, leaving him in a room of silk curtains and strange glowing orbs. Daniel sat on the bed, his mind racing. Why had she spared him? Why did her gaze feel like both kindness and danger? He clenched his fists, whispering to himself, "I need to be careful. I'm not just a guest here." Outside, in the great hall, the Countess stood alone. Her reflection glimmered in the crystal floor as her voice echoed softly, "A human?" At last, her eyes shone with both triumph and fear, for the prophecy had begun to unfold, and the price of eternity was finally within her reach. Morning light spilled into the alien palace. Though the sky above Velara was not like Earth's, it glowed with 3 suns, each burning in strange colors, one golden, one pale blue, and one red like fire. Daniel awoke in a chamber too beautiful to be real, its walls alive with shifting crystal patterns. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, until the memory of the Countess's gaze returned to him, sharp as a knife. The door opened without sound, and 2 silent servants entered. They carried silver trays filled with fruits that glowed faintly, dishes steaming with scents he could not name. Daniel rose cautiously, his eyes never leaving them, but they only bowed and placed the food before him. When they left, he sat slowly, tasting one of the fruits, sweet yet strange, like honey mixed with lightning. Hours passed, and then the Countess herself appeared, her step soft, her gown flowing like mist. Daniel stood at once, his guard high, but she only raised a hand in calm. "There is no need for fear," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You are far from home, human, and it is my duty to make you comfortable." She moved closer, her perfume filling the air, warm and intoxicating. Her eyes never left his face, studying him, searching him, as though she could see beyond skin and bone. Daniel forced a smile, though his instincts screamed at him to be careful. "Comfortable?" he asked quietly. "Why was I brought here under guard then?" The Countess tilted her head, a smile curving her lips. "My guards are loyal, perhaps too loyal," she said softly, "but I am not your enemy." Daniel crossed his arms, his voice steady. "Then tell me the truth. Why am I here?" Instead of answering, the Countess beckoned him to follow. Together they walked through long halls lined with glowing statues, each one carved to resemble beings from different worlds. Some looked noble, others monstrous, but all shared one thing, each statue's eyes seemed alive, almost watching. Daniel's unease grew, but he said nothing, waiting for her to reveal her game. At last, she brought him into a garden beneath a glass dome. Alien flowers bloomed in colors too bright for earthly eyes. Rivers of silver water flowed without sound. Strange birds with crystal wings flew overhead, singing haunting melodies. The Countess gestured with pride, her eyes shining. "This," she said, "is my gift to you, a piece of beauty that even your world has never known." Daniel looked around, but his suspicion did not fade. "Why? Show me this?" he asked, his voice low. The Countess's gaze softened, though hunger still lingered behind it. "Because you are different, human," she said. "Your kind burns with life, with spirit, something no other species has." Daniel frowned, sensing the weight in her words. "You speak as if you envy us," he said. The Countess turned away, her face shadowed. "Envy, yes," she whispered, "but also longing." For the first time, her mask slipped, and Daniel saw something raw beneath her beauty. Not just power, not just hunger, but fear of time, fear of fading. She turned back quickly, her smile returning like a shield. "Tell me, Daniel," she asked, "do humans not fear aging? Do you not wish to stay young forever?" Daniel paused, caught off guard by the question. He thought of Earth, of his family long gone, of friends he had buried. "Yes," he admitted, "we fear it, but we also live with it. We make peace with it, because our time is short, and that makes it precious." The Countess studied him closely, his words piercing deeper than he realized. Her smile wavered, her hands tightening on the edge of a crystal. "Table, to live knowing the end is near," she whispered, "and yet still laugh, still love. That is what makes your kind dangerous." Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "And maybe that is what makes us human," he said. The Countess's eyes flashed. Torn between desire and doubt, she reached out as if to touch him, but stopped, her fingers trembling in the air. Silence stretched between them, heavy as a storm. Then she turned abruptly, her gown swirling, hiding her hesitation. "You will dine with me tonight," she said, her voice suddenly cold again. "Rest now and prepare." Before Daniel could reply, she was gone, her presence leaving the air colder than before. He sat alone in the garden, his heart uneasy. Every word she spoke carried charm, yet underneath it was something dangerous. He knew now she was not simply a ruler curious about humans. She wanted something from him, something far greater than he could imagine. That night, as the alien moons rose again, Daniel whispered to himself, "She is hiding something, and whatever it is, I must uncover it before it's too late." Far away, in her private chamber, the Countess stood before her mirror once more, her reflection flawless, yet her eyes dark with doubt. The human's words echoed in her mind, sharp as a blade. "Time is precious because it ends." She clenched her fists, her fear and hunger twisting inside her. He was right, but she could not allow herself to accept it. Not yet, not when eternity was within reach. The palace grew quieter as night fell across Velara. The alien city outside shimmered with strange lights, but inside the great halls, only shadows moved. Daniel sat in his chamber, restless, unable to sleep. Every word from the Countess replayed in his mind. Her question about eternal youth, her strange hunger hidden behind beauty. Suddenly, the door opened without warning. 2 guards stepped in, their armor glowing faintly in the dark. "You will come with us," one said, their voice hollow and cold. Daniel frowned but obeyed, knowing resistance now would be useless. They led him through twisting corridors he had never seen before. The walls grew older here, carved with symbols that pulsed with faint light. The air was colder, heavier, carrying the weight of something ancient. Daniel's heartbeat quickened, each step echoing like thunder in the silence. At last, the guards stopped before a massive door of black stone. It was covered in runes that glowed red. Alive with energy, without a word, they pushed it open, and Daniel was forced inside. The chamber beyond was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was vast, with a high ceiling that seemed to vanish into shadows. Strange crystals floated in the air, casting red and blue light that danced across the walls. In the center stood an altar made of silver and obsidian, surrounded by a circle of symbols carved into the floor. The air hummed with a low vibration, as if the chamber itself was alive. And there she was, the Countess, waiting for him. Her gown glowed faintly, her eyes brighter than ever. She turned as he entered, her smile soft yet heavy with unspoken intent. "Welcome, Daniel," she said, her voice carrying through the chamber like music and thunder together. Daniel froze, his eyes scanning the symbols, the altar, the unnatural light. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice sharp. The Countess walked closer, her hands brushing along the edge of the altar. "This," she whispered, "is the ritual chamber, the heart of my palace, the place where truth is revealed and destiny is decided." Her words made Daniel's stomach tighten. He stepped back, his voice growing firm. "Why bring me here?" The Countess's smile deepened, though her eyes darkened with hunger. "You already know," she said softly. "Your kind has something no other being in the galaxy possesses. A flame that burns bright, a spirit that never dies, and with it, I can be eternal." Daniel's chest tightened as the truth struck him. He shook his head, anger rising. "You mean my life, my essence? You want to steal it?" The Countess's voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. "For centuries, I have ruled, I have carried beauty, Power and wisdom, yet all of it fades, all of it slips away. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper against his ear. But you can give me what time has stolen. Daniel stepped back quickly, his fists clenched. You think I'll just let you drain me? You're wrong. His words echoed across the chamber, defiant, filled with fire. The Countess tilted her head, her expression unreadable. You speak with courage, she said. But courage will not save you from destiny. She raised her hands, and the crystals in the chamber flared with light. The runes on the floor blazed, forming a circle of fire around the altar. Daniel felt the ground shake beneath his feet, the air thick with unseen power. The Countess's gown lifted slightly, as though caught in a silent wind. Her hair glowing like flame. Step into the circle, she commanded. Her voice now deep and commanding. Daniel stood his ground, his jaw set. No, he said. I won't be part of this. The Countess's smile faded, and for the first time, a flicker of frustration crossed her perfect face. Do you not understand? She cried, her voice echoing against the chamber walls. This is not cruelty, it is survival, it is eternity, and only you can give it to me. Her words shook with desperation, and for a moment, Daniel saw her mask break. She was not just a ruler hungry for power. She was a soul terrified of death. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice steady and sharp. Then die like the rest of us, he said. Because stealing life doesn't make you eternal. It makes you empty. The chamber fell silent, the crystals dimming slightly. The Countess stared at him, her eyes wide, torn between rage and sorrow. Her hands lowered slowly, but the circle of light still burned. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Empty. Yes, perhaps I already am, for the first time in centuries. She felt doubt clawing at her, yet her hunger was stronger, her fear deeper. She turned away from him, hiding the war in her heart. Tomorrow, she said coldly, the ritual begins. The guards appeared once more, dragging Daniel away. He struggled but knew the fight was not for now. His mind raced as he was thrown back into his chamber. He had only one night to find a way out, or face a fate worse than death. And deep within the ritual chamber, the Countess stood alone, her hands trembling over the glowing altar. Her reflection in the crystal light showed her face, beautiful, eternal, but hollow, and in the silence, she whispered again, empty. The night on Velara was heavy with silence. Daniel sat alone in his chamber, staring at the alien stars through a narrow window. The Countess had spoken of the ritual, had promised that by sunrise his essence would be hers, but Daniel was not a man who surrendered easily. He paced the room, his mind racing. No weapon, no allies, no escape from the towering palace walls, and yet, he still carried the one thing she could not take without force's will. That thought steadied him, lit a fire in his chest. When dawn came, the guards returned. Their armor glowed faintly, their expressions cold and empty. They took him once more through the twisting corridors, down into the depths of the palace, until again he stood in the ritual chamber. The Countess waited, more radiant than before. Her gown shimmered like liquid night, her jewels burned like captive stars. But Daniel saw past the beauty now. Her eyes betrayed the truth. They were filled not only with hunger, but with fear. She raised her hands, and the crystals flared to life. The circle on the floor blazed with red light, humming with power. Step forward, human, she commanded, her voice echoing across the chamber. Your time has come. Daniel did not move, his jaw set, his fists clenched. No, he said firmly, I will not give myself to you. The Countess tilted her head, her smile sharp as a blade. You think you have a choice? The ritual is already prepared. Your refusal means nothing. Daniel's voice rose, filled with fire. It means everything. Because you can take my body, you can even drain my life, but you will never have what makes me human. His words cut through the chamber like thunder. The Countess faltered, just for a moment, her hands trembling in the glow. What is it you think you have that I do not? She asked, her tone half curious, half mocking. Daniel stepped forward. His eyes locked on hers. "Mortality," he said. "The courage to live knowing it will end. The strength to fight for moments that slip away. The love that burns brighter. Because time steals it." The chamber grew silent. The crystals dimmed as if listening. The Countess's face froze, her eyes wide with something between anger and sorrow. She stepped closer, her voice low, almost trembling. "You call that strength? To fade, to crumble, to vanish into dust. That is weakness, that is horror." Daniel's reply was steady, his voice like iron. "No, Countess. Weakness is fearing what you cannot stop. Strength is embracing it. Strength is living despite it. And that is something your eternity will never give you." For the first time, her breath caught. Her flawless mask cracking, she saw in his eyes not fear, but defiance, not despair, but fire, and it shook her more than any weapon could. For centuries she had ruled unchallenged, and yet one fragile human stood before her, refusing her power. "Do not test me," she hissed, her voice shaking as the runes flared brighter. "I could end you now. I could drain you before you speak another word." Daniel did not flinch, his voice calm. "Then do it. But know this, if you take my life, you will never escape the truth of my words. You will never stop being empty." The Countess's hands trembled as she held the energy above the altar. The chamber roared with light, the crystals vibrating, the circle burning with fire, her face twisted with conflict, rage, hunger, fear, longing. She wanted his essence, she wanted eternity. But his defiance pierced deeper than her desire. Her voice cracked, her beauty trembling like glass. "Why do you not fear me? Why do you not beg for life?" Daniel's answer came like a blade, simple and sharp. "Because life isn't worth living if it's stolen. And I'd rather die as a human than live as your prisoner." The words struck her harder than any blow. The chamber dimmed again, the fire of the runes flickering. She stepped back slowly, her hands lowering, the energy fading. Her chest rose and fell with unsteady breaths. Her eyes locked on him with something she had not felt in centuries, doubt. The guards at the edge of the chamber shifted nervously, unsure of their mistress's silence. The Countess raised a trembling hand, halting them, her voice a whisper. "Leave him," she said, her tone weak, almost broken. They obeyed, vanishing into the shadows. Leaving the two alone, Daniel stood firm, his body tense but his spirit unshaken. The Countess stared at him, her voice barely audible. "You are the first to stand against me without trembling, the first to speak to me as though I am not a goddess." Daniel's reply was calm, steady, filled with quiet strength. "Because you are not a goddess, you are just afraid. Like anyone else." Her lips parted, but no words came. She turned sharply, hiding her face as tears threatened to break. Through the mask, the crystals dimmed further. The runes faded, and in that silence, the human's defiance had done what no power in the galaxy ever could. It had shaken the eternal Countess. Asterisk. The ritual chamber had fallen into uneasy silence. The crystals that once glowed like fire now flickered weakly, as if uncertain. The Countess stood at the altar, her hands trembling above the fading circle of light. Daniel faced her with steady eyes, his body weary but his spirit unbroken. Her mind screamed at her to finish the ritual. She had waited centuries for this chance, suffered the slow creeping shadow of age, one act, one choice, and she could be eternal, forever young, forever adored. And yet his words clung to her like chains, heavy and unshakable. "You will never stop being empty," he had said. The memory pierced her heart sharper than any blade. Empty, that was the truth she had hidden from herself for so long. All her beauty, her power, her throne, all of it built on fear. The chamber pulsed with red light, urging her, tempting her. The prophecy whispered through her thoughts. Eternal youth through human essence. Her lips trembled as she whispered it aloud. But even as she spoke the words, her voice cracked like broken glass. Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm, steady as stone. "You don't need this, Countess. You think it will save you, but it won't." Her eyes flashed with anger, though it was more at herself than him. "You don't understand," she cried. Without youth I am nothing, without beauty I am forgotten. Daniel shook his head, his voice low but firm. No. Without youth, you are still a ruler, still a soul, still someone who could choose differently. His words echoed through the chamber, bouncing against the ancient stone. For the first time in centuries, the Countess felt powerless, not against time, but against the truth. The air thickened, the runes flaring again, brighter, hotter. The ritual demanded its price. The chamber itself seemed to hunger. Her body shook as the energy pulled at her, urging her to strike. Yet her eyes stayed locked on Daniel's, calm, unafraid, piercing. She raised her hand again, power swirling like fire. For a heartbeat, she imagined his essence flowing into her. She imagined herself young again, her people kneeling in awe, the galaxy whispering her name. The temptation was intoxicating, almost unstoppable. But then, another image. One she had never expected. She saw herself through his eyes, not as a goddess, not as eternal beauty, but as a woman trapped by fear, chained by vanity, consumed by emptiness. And that vision hurt more than the weight of time ever had. Daniel spoke again, his voice softer now, almost gentle. Countess, if you take this step, you'll curse yourself forever. You'll live long, but never truly live. Her hand shook violently, the energy blazing, then dimming, then blazing again. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her body torn between hunger and hesitation. At last, she cried out, her voice breaking like thunder. Why do you not fear me? Why do you not beg? Daniel's reply was quiet, yet filled with fire. Because I'd rather die human than see eternity without meaning. The words struck her like a storm, shattering the ritual's grip. The energy burst apart in sparks, the runes dimming into silence, the crystals above shattered, raining fragments of glowing stone onto the floor. The chamber itself groaned as though mourning the broken ritual. The Countess fell to her knees, her body trembling, her hands clawed at the ground, her face hidden in her gown. For centuries, she had been untouchable, unbreakable, eternal in her mask. And yet one human had undone her with nothing but truth. Daniel stood over her, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He had expected death, but instead he had seen something far stranger, her surrender. He did not mock her, did not celebrate. He simply watched, his eyes steady, waiting to see if she would rise or fall. The Countess lifted her head slowly, her eyes wet with tears she had not shed in centuries. Her voice was a whisper, fragile, broken. I'm afraid. It was the first honest thing she had spoken in ages. Daniel stepped closer, his tone calm. Then you are not empty anymore. You've admitted the truth. Her lips parted, trembling at his words, for in his eyes she saw something she had not known in all her years' mercy. The chamber now lay in ruins, the ritual dead, the prophecy broken. The Countess knew she had reached a crossroad that no power could undo. Either she would cling to her hunger and fall deeper into emptiness, or she would face her fear, accept her mortality, and find something greater. Her hands slowly lowered, the last sparks of energy fading into the floor. She rose to her feet, weaker than she had ever felt, but lighter somehow. Her eyes lingered on Daniel, no longer with hunger, but with something closer to respect. And in the silence, the unspoken truth became clear. The turning point had come. The ritual chamber lay in ruins, its once glowing runes now nothing more than cold scars on the stone floor. The crystals that had burned with alien light were shattered, their fragments flickering like dying stars across the ground. Smoke curled through the air, carrying the bitter scent of broken magic. In the center of it all stood the alien Countess, her body trembling, her heart torn open by fear and truth. Daniel faced her with steady eyes, his breath slow but strong. He had expected death, but instead he had seen the impossible, the Countess faltering. The ritual undone, now silence filled the space between them, heavy and unbroken. The fate of both their lives balanced on the edge of a single choice. The Countess's voice broke the silence, soft and fragile, For centuries, I ruled, adored, feared, worshipped, she whispered, her words heavy with sorrow. And yet, in the end, all I ever was afraid. Her hands trembled as she touched her own face, as though feeling the lines of age that only she could see. Daniel did not move closer, but his voice carried across the chamber like steel wrapped in calm. Then stop being afraid. Countess, choose differently. Choose to live, not to steal. Her eyes rose to his, filled with both desperation and wonder. You speak as if it is so simple, she whispered, as if centuries of hunger can vanish in a breath. Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. No, it will not vanish, but you can face it. You can carry it. You can live like the rest of us, knowing every day might be the last, and making it matter. The Countess's lips parted, her breath sharp. To her, those words felt like both freedom and chains. Slowly she turned back toward the altar. The silver surface gleamed faintly, whispering promises of eternity. If she chose it, she could repair the ritual, drain him, and rise young again, adored again, powerful again. The temptation was a storm inside her, fierce and relentless. But then she looked at him, this fragile human, standing unarmed, unbroken, unafraid. His defiance had shown her something no ritual could, what it meant to live with courage instead of fear. And in that moment, she understood the truth. Eternity without meaning was not life. It was only another prison. Her hands lowered slowly, her voice steady now, though soft. No, I will not take your essence, Daniel Howe. Daniel's chest rose with relief, though he did not let it show. Instead, he asked quietly, Then what will you do? The Countess stepped away from the altar, her gown trailing through the broken light. I will do what I should have done long ago, she whispered. I will live as I am, and when the end comes, I will face it, not hide from it. Her words were not only a choice, but a vow. Daniel nodded, respect flickering in his eyes. That is the strength you were missing all along, he said. For the first time in centuries, the Countess smiled, not the sharp, hungry smile of a predator, but a fragile human smile, filled with both sorrow and peace. The chamber around them grew still, as though even the palace itself acknowledged her choice. The prophecy was broken, the hunger ended. All that remained was the Countess, no longer eternal, no longer perfect, but finally free. Daniel turned to leave, but she called out softly. Wait, she said, her voice trembling but warm. He stopped, glancing back, his brow raised. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered, for giving me something no ritual ever could. Truth. Daniel gave a small nod, his voice calm. Then live it, he said. And with that, he walked away. The great doors opened, and the humans stepped into the light of alien dawn, leaving behind a ruler who was no longer immortal, but at last truly alive. The Countess stood alone in the chamber, the last fragments of magic fading into dust. Her reflection in the broken crystals no longer looked eternal, but it no longer looked empty either. She had chosen mortality, chosen courage, chosen life, and somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. For if one human could change her fate with nothing but words, then perhaps humanity's spirit was stronger than the galaxy had ever imagined.